Nails get a bad rap. They really are a traditional way of putting together furniture that'll last generations. You just gotta use the right nail. The thing is, for the past 100 years we've been using these wire nails because they're really inexpensive, they're quick to make by the manufacturers, and they kind of are universal. You use them in constructing homes, all that kind of stuff. But for furniture, we all know it just doesn't work very well. They don't stay together. Let's examine why. So we have our wire nail. I don't have a head on this one because it's just a piece of cut out cardboard, but I'm using this as the example because it's big and we can see it. And we have our board right here. Now if you look at that tip, is that a cutting action or a wedging action? When you drive that into wood, is it going to try to slice the wood or split the wood? I mean, this is like an axe. You're trying to split the wood. And if you drive it in, depending upon which way the grain is going, but because this is round, it's going in both with the grain and against the grain, more than likely it's just going to try to split its way down. That's why when you drive a 12D nail into something like a 2x4, going with the grain, you get a little tiny crack, a little tiny split, because it's just spreading the fibers out. And you drive it down in there so it sits in the wood. We drive it down flush. Okay? Now, what happens over time? Wood contracts and expands with the humidity in the air, with moisture. Water is our enemy, especially for nails. So if you're in an outdoor situation, like on your deck, I mean, how many of y'all have seen the nails rising up in your deck? There are a lot of explanations of why that happened, but one of the more common ones is simply water. In the dead of winter, there's not much water in the air, so the wood kind of expands out. It loses its weight. It gets kind of fat. So what happens is you get an air gap along the sides of your nails. And then it snows or it rains or something like that. And what happens in that tiny gap? Water accumulates. And of course, water goes down. And now we have a wedging action down here. What happens when water freezes? It expands, right? Whoop. Next freeze. Whoop. Next freeze. Whoop. And because there's a gap on the inside, this nail can slide in and out fairly easily. Then what happens in the dead of summer when it's really, really, really humid? Well, the wood squeezes around that nail, and if it wasn't driven in summer, it kind of compresses those fibers. So once winter comes around, compressed fibers that are very dry, that gap gets even bigger. There's nothing holding this nail down because it split the fibers. It didn't it didn't slice them. This is a problem we have nowadays. You put this into furniture, you're going to have the same situation as temperatures change. It can waller out. There's nothing gripping that one because the more you abuse furniture, you move it around, these nails kind of wiggle, they crush, and then they're loose. There's nothing holding the nail in. But there's been a solution to that problem, and it's been around for millennium. It actually dates back to the Roman era. We just forgotten it this past century for the sake of corporate profits. Wire nails are cheap to make. Cut nails take a hand or very specialized machinery and cannot be made easily. You see, a cut nail has several different dimensions. One nail is, if you look at it one way, it's going to look very flat and straight, almost like a wire nail with no point. But you turn it to its side, and all of a sudden, it's got a wedging action. And blacksmiths used to make this thing by the thousands in a day, but it would take them, 20, 30 seconds per nail to make it. They had a special little crevice where they would drive a hot iron in, then they would hit it on flat on top, flip it over, bang it out. That's why nails were so important around the turn of the 19th century, and the first job of most apprentices was to pull out nails of old projects and straighten them out to be reused. They were blacksmith made, handmade, one at a time. Now there are a few companies that are mass producing them, but they aren't as fast as just dragging a wire nail through a big machine, cutting it, angling it, smashing the end. I mean, you can buy, but they aren't that expensive. You just have to search them out. I think the last time I priced them, a box of 100 nails was, $6 or $7 after shipping to get it to me. And if you're looking at a whole piece of furniture, you're not going to use 100 nails in that, so that's not a big investment. Whereas you can go down to the big box store, for $5 you buy a 5-pound box of nails that has thousands of them in there. So that's why you don't see these in big box stores. Now let's look at the design of this nail. First off, they are made from wrought iron, and as you drive that iron down into either a crevice or you turn it on its side and you peen it out like that, the iron itself because iron has grain, just kind of like wood, it forms a coarseness in one direction, kind of going with the grain and against the grain in wood. So as it goes into the wood, it can cut wood or braid wood as it goes down to get a really tight grip. And here's how that happens. Notice we have a flat end. And if you ever have problems with wire nails, a lot of times they'll go into wood without splitting. If you turn them on and pound out the tip so it's nice and flat, because it will become a cutting action like nails are. That's what they are doing. They are crushing and cutting fibers as they go into it. They are not splitting the wood. Now, you're looking over here and say, hey, that's a wedging action. That is splitting the wood. Depends upon how you use the nail. If your wood grain is running, say our board is like this, well, the grain is running up and down. So if I were to put this wedge in action in this direction, so the wedging action was going out this way and that way, yes, it would split the wood. But what if I put the wedging action going out this way and that way? So it's battling the end grain, not the long grain. All of a sudden that wedging action isn't going to split the wood, it's going to crush the wood. So here's how you would actually use a cut nail. You would drill a pilot hole. The hole will be the width of that long flat side. So we drill a pilot hole into a board just like that. Okay? Then we're going to drive that cut nail into the wood where the wedging action is pushing out, going into the end grain. So there's no chance you are going to split the wood. Now these nails have a flat bottom, so they will cut into the wood and crush it in. So what you do is you drill a hole in 2/3 the depth of your nail. So let's say we just drill that hole in that far with our goal of getting the nail close to the other side but not going all the way through. Okay? So as you drive that nail into the wood, what's happening to the wood fibers? So we've got our board and we drilled our hole 2/3 of the way down that we want it to go. And then we drive our nail down in. I wish I had a different color marker, so just go with me. That nail is going to crush these fibers on either side as it goes in and wedges down. So you're going to end up with a nail in at that shape. Now some of y'all engineers out there are going to say, hey, that would pull out really easy because it's a wedge shape. It's not wedged in like a dovetail. But think about this. When you drove that nail in, like that, where did the wood fibers that were here go? They didn't come out. You actually crushed them down. And when you crush them down, they crush down at this kind of angle. Okay? So those fibers are now crushing down into it. So in order for you to pull that nail out, you're going to have to go against those fibers. Plus the fact, remember me talking about the grain of the iron? If it was going the other direction, all of a sudden you have something called, I don't know, Velcro. Two things intermixing they're fighting each other. you would actually have to rip the fibers past it again to make it work. The fact that you've crushed those fibers, the cells have compacted and they're going down and they just really, really grip. So even if water got into this nail, what would water do? It would swell those fibers so it would grip even more. That's why you could use nails like this in boats. I mean, a cut nail, its entire design, dating way back to the Roman era, was designed to use the wood's fibers to hold it in. Now let's come back to that straight nail. Can you see why they don't really work? Because all that did was split the wood to get the nail down. The water actually becomes a lubricant to get it back out. The humidity. There's nothing gripping that nail other than a little friction. Cut nails is the reason why an entire class of furniture, mainly for the common man because of the guild system where a lot of people who made furniture weren't allowed to use joinery such as dovetails and Morrison tenons because they weren't part of the guild, but they could manufacture nailed together furniture. So there's a huge category of furniture that will last a good long time that uses nails. Look up Adam Cherubini, I think. He used to write for Popular Woodworking magazine, really tall guy, wears funny pants, online. He's done a lot of writing and he's done a lot of designs on this kind of furniture. So for these past 18 or 20 videos, on the bonus sections, I've been telling y'all about educators I like or articles I found really, really interesting. I thought I'd add a third aspect to it, to tools I like. And I'm just going to start out with my favorite tool. And if y'all have been following me on YouTube for a while, y'all pretty much know what it is. It's on my bench every single project. It's my 1/2-inch chisel. This is one of the first luxury tools I ever bought. It's a PMV11 from Veritas, Lee Valley. Their new 1/2-inch, their new chisels, the new design with that baked maple handle, whatever you call it. I love the metal on this thing. I think it's easier to sharpen than 01 tool steel. And I use diamond stones. I've done videos on that one before. But it holds its edge incredibly well. And I personally just love, ooh, don't do that. I just love the shape of it. It basically has no shoulder on it. I actually did take a little bit of sandpaper to kind of rough out this bottom section right here. So as I slid through joinery, I didn't cut myself. It is that minimal. It allows me to get into really tight joints, into the corners without that shoulder getting in the way. It's incredibly important in dovetails and stuff like that. The handle design, it just fits my hand perfectly. The swell slides in my medium-sized hand, and when I'm just carving with it, I love it. My thinking is that if you've been in woodworking for even a little while and you know that you use a specific tool quite a bit, we are in the lap of luxury, the golden age of hand tools. Treat yourself. Even some of the most expensive ones aren't that much money in the long picture. This is a lifetime tool. Who cares if I spent 60 bucks on it? I use it on every single project and it makes me happy. That's a minor luxury to deal with. So, if you're doing something like that, you find a tool that you really, really like, go ahead and get it.